On today's episode of the franchise, May 18th, we got the Miami Heat taking game one of the Eastern Conference Finals on the road against the number 2 seed Boston Celtics. Going to talk about that game, what the Celtics need to do. What did the Heat do well? And then I'm going to give up my top 10 NFL running backs. Yesterday, I did 15 wide receivers. I would like to say I definitely snubbed CD Lamb and honestly T. Higgins too. I think those, if I was to revamp the list one day later, I would put CD Lamb and T. Higgins in that conversation of top 15 receivers. I left CD Lamb out because of the drop numbers, but I mean, he's had some great seasons over the last 3 years. And then T. Higgins is a very underrated wide receiver, too, would be a wide receiver one on any single team. But we're doing top 10 running backs today. Before we get into the episode, as always, though, you can find the franchise, watch or listen on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. Or you can find the Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram in the description of the episode. All right, let's start here with game one between the Heat and the Celtics. Heat win this game by a score of 123 to 116. Jimmy Butler with an amazing performance. 35 points, 12 for 25 shooting from the field. Had 6 steals in this game. It was just another one of these Jimmy Butler playoff takeover performances that we've seen so much throughout the last few seasons here with the Miami Heat. Bam Adebayo had 20 points, 8 rebounds. And then how about these 4 guys? Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry, Max Strus, and then Caleb Martin, each with 15 points in this game for the Miami Heat. As a team, they shot 52% from three-point range in game one. On the other side of things, Tatum, 30 points, 1 for 3 3-point shooting, 9 for 17 from the field. Malcolm Brogdon had 19 points. And then Jaylen Brown with a very disappointing 11-point, 5 for 9 field goal shooting night. Very close game, honestly, throughout. I mean, after the first half, right into halftime, very close game. It's neck and neck, back and forth battle throughout the first half. But really, where Miami took over and won this game was in the third quarter, dropping 46 points out of the break and to Boston's 25 points in that quarter. Jimmy Butler has been amazing throughout these playoffs, and we saw it again last night in this performance. He's so good at, mid-range shots, tough jumpers on the outside, on the wings, straight up in the top of the key. He is such a dominant offensive scorer. Obviously, in this game, putting up 35 points. He did on the defensive end, too, getting 6 steals. And I like the matchup of him on Jason Tatum at times throughout this game. Bam is a very key piece, to Miami's success. And I think he's a very underrated part to their success. Obviously, we focus a lot on Jimmy Butler. But Bam is a super important piece to this team as well. Going up here, 20 points, 8 rebounds, being that guy, being that floor general also when Jimmy Butler's not on the floor is very big. And then when you get 15 points from 4 different guys on your team, you're going to win this game. And that's exactly what Miami did. Now for Boston, I think they played good in the first half, right? But that third quarter and that fourth quarter and sometimes throughout the first half, Boston just looked like there was times where they wanted to be there. They wanted it. They wanted to win. And then there was flashes throughout the game where they didn't look like they were a team trying to compete in this game and compete for a championship. They had no energy. They had no drive. They had no effort in this game compared to Miami. And the Boston crowd here at the TD Garden was dead until the fourth quarter. I mean, it seemed like a regular Wednesday night regular season basketball game, not game one of the Eastern Conference Finals until the fourth quarter. The crowd was not involved. It was dead. It was quiet until that fourth quarter when the Celtics kind of made a slight comeback is when the crowd got into it. But look, Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Celtics, has a lot of adjustments he needs to make. And it starts with Tatum and Brown. Tatum had another horrible shooting performance. So what? He dropped 30 points. They lost a game, and he shot 9 for 17 from the field and 1 for 3 from three-point range. And Jaylen Brown cannot be only putting up 9 shots in a game like this. He's your second option. He's sometimes your first option. Jaylen Brown needs to be getting as many touches, if not more, than Jason Tatum in a game, right? Brogdon having 19 points off the bench is nice. He's been doing that all season long. Derek White, Marcus Smart, Al Horford had a nice game too. But Tatum and Brown, your two superstars, need to play a whole lot better. And it's something that we've been saying all postseason long, right? We said it in the first round series against the Hawks, obviously last round against the Sixers, and then now we're saying it here against the Miami Heat. The inconsistent scoring and offensive nights from Tatum and Brown is really what's going to be holding this team back from potentially winning a championship. And look, the Heat are a one superstar in Jimmy Butler and a bunch of other guys who have championship experience, are hungry, know their roles, and go out there and put all the effort on the floor. Meanwhile, the Celtics are a team with two superstars in Brown and Tatum, and then a bunch of other guys. Some have championship experience. I mean, obviously, this group made it to the finals last year. But this Celtics group does not have, they don't have that dog in them out there in this series right now, putting their bodies on the line, getting these, going after the ball, getting back in transition on defense, running the length of the floor. They just are not putting out that effort, at least in game one. So Miami took this game. I think Miami's going to win this series. I don't know if I said it yesterday on the program, but I think Miami's really going to win this series. I think they're going to go to the finals as an 8th seed. Because I think they're a superior team. They're better coached with Eric Spoelstra, multiple championships as a head coach. He's the best head coach left in this postseason. So Miami takes a 1-0 series lead. Game 2 on Friday night. Boston needs to come back out with some more offense, some more energy, and some more effort to go out there and try to not go down 2-0 to this Miami team that, is really, really, really good. All right, top 10 running backs, and then we're going to be out of here for today's episode. So we did receivers, we did quarterbacks. Quarterbacks, I ranked like all 30-something plus quarterbacks in the NFL. Today we're doing top 10 running backs. I want to say, it's pretty tough because there's some guys that just missed out that 2 years ago would have been like top 5 running backs. But this position, the lifespan of these guys doesn't last long. Every season is completely different, running back to running back, right now in the NFL. So some guys that did miss out, Najee Harris had a pretty down year last season. Was over 1,000 yards, but his consistent game-to-game basis wasn't really there. I almost put Jamal Williams. I almost did this top 15. I almost put him in the top 15. I mean, he has 16 rushing touchdowns last season, but I decided it'd be right to keep him off of the list. When you look at, when he came in on the field for the Lions last season, and then some other guys notable guys that I had out on this list. Alvin Kamara, 15 games last season, 897 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns rushing. He also had 490 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. He's the only player in NFL history through his first 6 seasons to have at least 700 rushing and 400 receiving yards. He also had 4 fumbles last season. I just think, look, last year, Kamara, he played 15 games, but he just wasn't himself. When he is himself, and that's one of the best backs in the league, he's like a top 5, top 7 running back. Had to keep him out there of this list because of the season he had last year. Dalvin Cook used to be a consensus top 5 running back in the NFL. I put him at 12. 17 games last season, 264 attempts, 1,100 yards, 4.4 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. He had 4 fumbles. His consistent game-to-game basis wasn't there either, right? I think he missed a game. Well, he didn't obviously miss a game, played all 17, but he had some times, some games, some performances where they were very lackluster, right? The backup running back had a lot more stellar performances than Cook in some of those games, and that's going to keep him out. And then just missing out, I almost put him in here, Travis Etienne from the Jaguars, 220 attempts last season, 1,100 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns, along with 316 receiving yards, 3 fumbles. He just missed out. He almost made it. But let's get things started. At number 10, I went with Kenneth Walker III from the Seattle Seahawks. 15 games, 228 attempts, 1,050 yards, 4.6 yards per carry, 9 touchdowns, 27 receptions, 165 yards, and no fumbles. Was in the conversation for Offensive Rookie of the Year last season in Seattle. Took over after Rashad Penny went out with his injury. And now Kenneth Walker going to be the RB1 going into his second season. I love this guy's offensive skill set, and he comes in here at number 10. Number 9, Ramondre Stevenson of the Patriots. 17 games played, 210 attempts, 1,040 yards, 5.0 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns, 69 receptions, 421 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 fumble last season in New England. He's their primary focal point on offense as a receiver and as a running back. He had a lot of games last season, right, where he's, getting 5-6 catches, and then also getting some nice gains on the ground as well. I like his versatility. And as the number 1 option there in New England, he's going to get a lot of touches and a lot of catches going forward. Number 8, Tony Pollard. This is going to be his first true season as the primary back. I know last year he got some time as the primary back, but no more Ezekiel Elliott there in Dallas. 16 games last season, 193 attempts, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5.2 yards per carry. And he also had 39 receptions, 371 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns, no fumbles as well. He's a very explosive running back. When you watch the film, watch his highlights, he's able to find holes, break through, and have multiple big plays throughout the game. Obviously, 5.2 yards per carry is extremely, extremely good. And I think this year, first true full season as a starter here in Dallas, he's going to be absolutely amazing. Number 7, I went with Aaron Jones of the Packers. 17 games played last season, 213 rushing attempts, 1,121 yards, 5.3 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns on the ground. And then he's also a great receiving back as well. 59 receptions, 395 yards, 5 touchdowns. Did fumble the football 3 times last year. But for a Packers offense that, took a step back last season, Aaron Jones kind of just stayed at the same level he was all throughout his career. And that's a great receiving and also a great running back from the backfield as well. He's a true dual threat running back, and 5.3 yards per carry is among the highest in the NFL. Number 6, Austin Eckler of the Chargers. At least for now, we'll see if he ends up, starting the season there. 17 games last season, 204 rushing attempts, only 915 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns. He also had 107 receptions for 722 yards, 5 touchdowns. Did fumble the football 3 times. Look, Eckler is a touchdown machine, right? Whether it's on the ground or in the air, he is going to get touchdowns no matter what. And he's a true dual threat running back. Honestly, outside of Christian McCaffrey, he's probably the second best dual threat running back in this league. And he's so good at getting touchdowns. He finds the end zone multiple times a game. And look, the Chargers are going to need him this season, I think, to be a successful team, right? They brought in Quentin Johnston in the draft. They have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. But having Eckler in the backfield, whether you line him up as a receiver, whether you hand him the ball off in the backfield, adds some offensive versatility for the Chargers. And I love Austin Eckler, great fantasy running back. Obviously, if we were ranking these backs off of fantasy performance and what they're supposed to do for fantasy football, I think Eckler would probably be number 1 or number 2 in this conversation. But based off pure skill set, for me, he's a better receiving back than a rusher, but he's still a great rusher. So he's at number 6. Number 5 is Saquon Barkley, an absolutely explosive running back. Watching some of his highlights today, he's so quick. I mean, he gets the ball and it's just he just goes a million miles an hour. 16 games, 295 attempts, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, no fumbles, 4.4 yards per carry for him last season. After a few injury-riddled seasons, missing some years with an ACL and some other injuries, very nice bounce-back season for Saquon. It seems like they used him conservatively towards the end of the season there in New York. I think, look, he's a few years removed from his injuries now. Obviously, you don't want to push his limits too far and not have him available. But I think, 2023, he's going to get more yards, more attempts. He's going to get more opportunities to go out there and feed next season. Top 4, Josh Jacobs is at number 4, the leading rusher last season in the NFL with 1,600 yards and 340 attempts, 4.9 yards per carry, 12 touchdowns, 1 fumble last season. Josh Jacobs, we've been, it's been a very up and down kind of career for him. Last season was amazing in a Raiders offense that was, pretty bad in terms of passing, but his ability to be there as a rusher, getting the most yards, finding the end zone, creating space, using his speed, using his elusiveness. I think he can replicate this season. I don't think, he's obviously, it's going to be pretty hard to beat what he did last season, but he's definitely capable of any good year having 1,400 yards out of the backfield for the Raiders. And look, with Jimmy Garoppolo, I think they're going to go towards a more run-centric offense this season. I know they have Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, but you also brought in Michael Mayer to help, block on that offensive line at that tight end position. So Josh Jacobs should be getting more touches potentially in 2023. Top three right here, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is top three running back still at this point in his career. 16 games, 349 attempts, 1,500 yards, 4.4 yards per carry with 13 touchdowns in Tennessee last season. We'll see, if he does take a step back. He's getting a little bit older at this point in his career. You could say he slowed down from his 2,000-yard pace that he was having the last few seasons, but he still had a dominant year last year. I mean, 1,500 yards is absolutely incredible. 13 touchdowns as well. And look, he's the primary option on this Tennessee offense. Treylon Burks is not a good wide receiver in my opinion. And the rest of that Tennessee offense, Austin Hooper, I'm pretty sure I don't even think he's on the team anymore. Outside of Derrick Henry, there's not many options for Ryan Tannehill and then eventually Will Levis to give the football to. Derrick Henry's going to get his attempts next season. And he's still a premier back. He's such a dominant power rusher. Like good. If Derrick Henry is running 20 miles an hour directly at you, good luck trying to stop this guy. We've seen it time and time out where he's just running down the field. There's three guys trying to tackle him and he finds his way into the end zone. Number 2, I went with Christian McCaffrey of the 49ers. Look, 17 games played last season between Carolina and San Francisco, and he was great. First time healthy. We've seen him in a few years, which was great to see. 244 attempts, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4.7 yards per carry. He didn't fumble the football once. And he also had 85 receptions for 741 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's the premier dual threat running back in the NFL, whether it's rushing or in the receiving, lining up outside. He perfectly fits this San Francisco 49ers offense with Kyle Shanahan's system. I mean, you look, Deebo Samuel was playing this Christian McCaffrey role at one point in his career. And now you have Christian McCaffrey, who's the best at being a 1,000-yard back and a 1,000-yard receiver as a running back, right? Christian McCaffrey is so elite. I think the only thing holding him back is the guy at number 1. And I went Nick Chubb at number 1. 302 rushing attempts last season through 17 games, 1,500 yards, 5.0 yards per carry, 12 touchdowns. He did fumble the football one time, 27 receptions, 239 yards, and 1 touchdown. He's just a dominant running back, right? I mean, I was watching some of the film today trying to decide between these two guys because they're completely different styles of play. And I guess it depends on the system you're running and what you prefer, right? McCaffrey offers a lot of versatility, whether it's lining up in the slot, outside, even in the backfield. You can do so many creative plays with Christian McCaffrey. And with Nick Chubb, look, he's not going to get you as many receptions or receiving yards as a Christian McCaffrey, but he's a pure dominant running back. He's got some speed. He's got a lot of power. He's got some elusiveness. He's just, as a prototype running back, he fits all of the boxes that you want out of a running back. Dominant last season for the Cleveland Browns. And, look, they still have Kareem Hunt, right? So he's getting his touches with another great running back right there behind him. So Nick Chubb for me is number 1, followed by Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson, and then Kenneth Walker III. And then some guys just missing out, Travis Etienne, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Najee Harris kind of just missed the cut for me. So let me know what you think about my top 10 running backs. Probably some controversial takes in there. Probably some guys ranked too high, too low, or some guys that I did not even put in this top 10 at all. But I mean, look, I can only put 10 guys in this top 10. And there was at least 3 or 4 that I was really considering putting in there. I even consider putting Miles Sanders in there. He had a pretty good year last year for Philadelphia, now in Carolina. So that'll do it for this episode of the franchise. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, Western Conference Finals recap. Potentially, we're probably just going to do top 10 tight ends or something tomorrow as well. Whatever else happens over the next 24 hours, there's got to be something else we can talk about. Probably some baseball tomorrow as well. Remember, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. You can find the Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram in the description of every single episode. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll be back tomorrow with another episode.